Rock on, rock on. My name is Ben Cool, I'm a sports analyst and the host of BC60. Today I'm interviewing Trey, the gnarly broadcaster and play-by-play. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. I'm excited for our conversation ahead. I appreciate you taking the time and your busy schedule to join me. I have a few questions for you. What first sparked your passion for storytelling and audience engagement?
Yeah, so I mean, it started as a kid. I always kind of loved play-by-play broadcasting. It was something I always enjoyed. I always enjoyed listening to the broadcasters and how they kind of created the moment. And when I was a kid, I used to, I would play video games, 2K, MLB The Show, all that stuff. And I would call the game. I would turn the volume down the TV and I would try to create the moment. And I started doing that as a kid and it progressed into a passion of mine. And now I'm able to call games. I call games at Maryville and Lipscomb and a few other places as well.
That sounds awesome. What was the specific moment that you made you realize this is the path you wanted to pursue?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I mean, I don't know if there's necessarily a specific moment. I would say, like I said, when I was younger, I always loved sports. Sports was a big passion of mine. And, getting that chance to just actually, I would say there's a specific moment, actually. That was a great question. I had to think about it. So, when I was in high school, I actually did a program called the Walter Cronkite program. It was at Arizona State. And when I was there, I really got my first taste of play by play broadcasting. We actually got to call an inning at the Arizona Diamondbacks Stadium at Chase Field. And I think that was a moment I realized I love being in the broadcast booth. I love being able to create those moments. So I would say that moment at Walter Cronkite camp and being able to do that, that was a big moment of mine that I would remember.
Rock on. As a play-by-play broadcaster, how do you keep your audiences engaged during a game or event?
Yeah, so as a play-by-play broadcaster, I mean, like I said, creating the moment and painting the picture is the biggest thing because radio versus TV, I mean, it's two different things. With radio, obviously, your listeners aren't able to see the action. So you're really going to have to describe everything, make sure that you're really painting the picture. Whereas with TV, maybe you're weaving in a cool story. Maybe you're bringing in some stats that can kind of inform, the viewers as they're watching the game unfold. So I would say it's two different things. I love TV, I love radio too. But, radio really is a challenge of making sure that you're painting that picture because the people are not able to see what's going on. They're listening. So you have to make sure that you paint that picture for them.
Gnarly. What's the biggest challenge when calling a game live?
Calling a game live, I mean, the biggest thing is you never know what's going to happen. So, I call games at Maryville University. That's in Chesterfield, not too far from St. Louis. And one time I was doing a lacrosse game. It actually was my first lacrosse game, and it was a women's lacrosse game. And we had a player that was injured. And, when you're on live television, you have to be able to kind of adjust. You don't want to speculate the injury. You have to be able to cut it to break, with, just being able to do that is a big thing that comes with calling a game live. So I would say just the unexpectedness of it. You just got to be prepared because you never know what's going to happen.
Very true. I can relate too, because I always prepare when I put on these broadcasts myself.
Yeah, you got to be prepared. You definitely have to be prepared. You never know what's going to happen.
Thank you. And what advice would you give someone looking to build a career across multiple communication fields like you have?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say don't be afraid, just be courageous. Like you reaching out to me, you reached out through LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great avenue to kind of connect with people. A lot of people are open on that platform. I've made some great connections on that. I would just say, be courageous, find your voice. That's something else that you've done and I've done myself is just be able to find your voice, figure out how to kind of find your voice and figure out what your image is going to be and just it's a grind but it's very worth it and you just got to take your time and you'll get to where you want to be. So I would just say find your voice and just don't be afraid of this process because it is long but it's rewarding in the end.
Thank you. Are there any skills that they should focus on developing first?
Yeah, I would say I mean, the biggest thing, like I said, I go back to your voice. I feel like your voice is probably the biggest thing, with play by play. You can learn the sport, you can learn the rules, you can learn all that, but finding your voice is the biggest thing that I feel like is important if you're trying to be in this industry as a play by play broadcaster. And just treat people with kindness. I would always say, treat people with respect. It goes a long way. I mean, these are tough times for everybody. So, just be kind. The world needs more kindness. I would say do that. But developing your voice is very important.
Thank you for the advice. And very true. Thank you so much for taking time to sit down with me for an interview. It was actually a pleasure to speak with you. And your insights, your stories, and perspective are inspiring. I'm grateful for the opportunity to learn from you.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Come back again soon. We're
I
going to
will.
work on this in my show. See you soon, everyone.